Welcome to AG University, episode 1. You guys, I literally had absolutely no idea that I was going to start a podcast. This was a very kind of spur of the moment decision, but if you guys know me, there's one thing. When I get an idea, nobody whips it together faster than me and producer Courtney. She is here. She has always been my biggest support and giving me the confidence to show up on video. She created my Patreon with me actually this past year, and I really was so excited to be doing Patreon because I was like, I'm gonna finally share a lot more about my energy work practice because I have been running this secret business for 2 years in private. But I started posting on Patreon, and I realized that even on Patreon, I was still kind of hiding, because you have to pay $15 up front to join to see the videos. So I was like, you know what? I've gone through a rebirth lately. I actually went to a meditation retreat at the beginning of this month in September, and I decided I'm no longer hiding. I'm going to share everything there is to know about me, my energy work practice, everything I do, and how I got here. Because it's really, honestly, it's a pretty freaking crazy story. We teased it. We shared it on Shannon's podcast, and I'm going on so many podcasts. Everyone's asking me about this crazy near-death experience, life pivot transition that I experienced. It is honestly very wild. But I was like, I need one place where I can tell the story full out from start to finish, my true perspective, without feeling guilty that I'm talking too much on someone else's podcast. This way, I'm this is my whole story. So if you guys ever find me somewhere else, I'm going to take you from start to finish, and also ultimately kind of give you guys a little bit of my background, how long I've been doing this, how basically I know all the things that I hope to teach you. Really, this, obviously, AG University is an educational platform because I want to take you guys to the top. Not that I'm 100% at the top, but I am pretty shocked that I'm 29 years old. I've built multiple 6-figure businesses. I've manifested physical changes in my body. I've healed my relationship with myself. I have a beautiful boyfriend, perfect angel baby partner. I have a new home in Florida. I live at the beach. I literally frolic around on the beach every day. And truly my baseline is generally peace and happiness. I don't want to say every single day because, I'm human. I still have ups and downs. But if I knew that I would get here 5 years ago, I would have never believed you because I did not think any of this was possible, because I was the CEO of debilitating negative self-talk, inner critic, a slew of other issues. I was CEO twerp bitch victim mentality. I really was. I always think I'm gosh, if there was anybody that knew me before I was age 26, you really didn't know me. Also, I am a completely different person. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm what would I call this episode? And the first thing that came to my head was the beginning of the T Swift song where she's old Taylor can't come to the phone. Why? Because she's dead. Literally, that's what happened to me. If you knew me in my early 20s, I'm so sorry. Actually, I'm being so dramatic. I wasn't a terrible person. I've always been generally positive. I've always had a lot of friends, but I just feel I was a zero. I was not spiritual. I did not manifest. I knew nothing. And I just really struggled. There was a lot of internal struggle going on that I don't think a lot of people knew about. But I just feel now I'm so much more just genuinely rooted in self-love and gratitude and just peace. And I never thought I would experience that. And now that I've experienced it, I'm I want everyone to experience this because I've been on both sides and life is so much better on this side. So I'm come to this side. Let me take you to this side. So anyways, old AG can't come to the phone because she's dead. And literally, I actually did die. So we're going to get there. But before I get to, if you guys have heard, I had this crazy out-of-body experience / near-death experience. I don't even really know what to call it. Just something so unexplainable. Something that shook me to my core, to infinity and beyond, that I was literally almost instantly a different person. But before we get there, I am going to start from the beginning. Because this is a podcast, I'm used to talking on YouTube videos and TikTok where I'm trying to talk really fast. I'm going to try to give you guys a lot of detail because I do feel the details are important in understanding where I came from and how basically dramatic of a transformation, dramatic of a shift this was. No one's more shocked than me. First of all, as a child, growing up, I was a very magical little kid. I was very well-spoken. I came into this this planet with a lot of fire. My parents always joked that I was like two, speaking in like absolute complete sentences, like no baby talk. Just I was just, yeah, very outspoken, very street smart. My people would be like, how old is she? Mom's like, she's two. And I'd be like, hello, mom, pass the, pass the applesauce. I'm hungry. Like, I was just very, I don't know, I was very just talkative, but like really in tune child all the way up until like, I feel like even when I was 8, I remember telling my dad that I was very prophetic. Like I told my dad, I was like, Dad, I'm going to, be speaking to millions of people and I'm going to help them. And I'm gonna make a lot of money and I'm gonna take care of you. And like, you guys, I was literally like in 3rd grade. Like I was like, I 8. And so I had like a lot of, I feel like indicators that would lead to like, obviously what I'm doing now. But I would say up until I was about 10, kids are super intuitive. I was very intuitive. I was like, I loved fashion. I loved all the things that I'm doing now, but like on a little bit more of a childlike, innocent scale. Like I created a line of clothing for my Beanie Babies and they all wore red hot chili pepper dresses. Like I was very artistic. I love crafts. I love drawing horses, like things that I would love to design my own line today. Like I was just very in tune with my inner child and magic. And I believed in all of the things. But I think, after I hit like 10 and onwards, we kind of get into that like societal programming where, the daydreaming is bad and focus and pay attention. I kind of lost touch with that intuitive side, but it was there as a child. So then I grew up in the Catholic Church. I went to a Catholic all-girls private school and was very strict. But I've always had great memories with my schooling. I went to an all-girls school. I loved it. I thought it was fun. Our uniforms were absolutely hideous, but like we loved it. I loved wearing a uniform. And I always really, really wanted to be religious. Like I wanted to connect. But the Catholic Church just felt a little rigid for me. And I still identify you guys as Christian. I think I am a little bit more on the non-denominational. I'm very open to everything. I still pray in Jesus' name just because I'm doing all types of intuitive work. I want you guys to know that like everybody is safe here. Every belief you have, this is a safe place. But I just want you guys to understand my background. So my dad was an environmental scientist and he was a little bit more into the quantum world. So I do feel like both of my parents were like kind of open to different things, but religion at its core was not a massive part of my upbringing. But I continued on Catholic school up until I was about 14. I was always just like, I wasn't the greatest student. I was kind of like a class clown. I was always like talking and disruptive, but like I said, like I had a lot of friends and like my teachers loved me, but they'd be like, Anna Grace, stop, you're disrupting the whole class. So my guidance counselor was like, to my parents was like, we love Anna Grace, but she's just really distracting. She's always daydreaming out the window. She's never paying attention. And she just really doesn't do her schoolwork. And I'm like, yeah, that checks out. Yep. So she was like, you guys should maybe get her tested for ADD or ADHD. So I get tested. I pretty much so at age 14, I'm very like, I am, very creative, very like hyper. So I was like put on a ton of, I'm going to say numbers for you guys, but I want you to know that this is not a medical advice. I'm not telling you to take anything or not take anything or stop your meds. This is not about medication. This is just the hard facts of my life. Okay. That's the only disclaimer I'm going to say in this. This is not medical advice, but I was prescribed off the bat 50 milligrams of Vyvanse, which at this point, you guys, I was like $110. I was 14. I literally weighed like 100 pounds. Like, oi. So now in hindsight, I'm like Vyvanse and all that stuff is just like speed, but I'm on Vyvanse. I'm prescribed like a large dose. They kind of even played with it. I feel like at one point that there was a time in my life where I was taking 60 milligrams of Vyvanse and I even had Adderall shorts. So this went on like Adderall, like in a not time release. Anyways. So as you guys know, I'm in high school. I'm a cheerleader. I'm doing gymnastics. I'm playing sports. I'm doing all the things. I'm taking Adderall and Vyvanse to, be a better student, quote unquote. But that's when the old slippery slope happened. And I'm taking, Vyvanse and I'm not eating and I'm doing better in school. And so that's, good. My parents are happy. I'm making all A's. And then, I remember my cheer coach being like, oh my gosh, AG, you look so thin. Like, you look so good. I was getting so praised for being skinny. Ugh. my 15-year-old self is just loving it. So then it becomes that, that need for like, oh, I equate being skinny to being loved and praised and validated and complimented. And that was really the start of all of the disordered eating that turned into pretty much taking over my brain and body for the next 10 years. So at this point, from age 14 till up until I was 24, 25, I was in a constant arm wrestle with just disordered eating, constantly taking Adderall. I mean, I remember one time we had a cheer coach that weighed us in because I was a top girl. So I was always the one that was on top. I did co-ed too. So it's like, there was all this just like unrealistic expectations on body image. Also, if you guys see me, like, first of all, I'm 5'3". I'm built. People are always like, you look like a gymnast. Like, I am muscular. I am built. It was real. I always struggled to get to this ideal number that cheer coaches wanted because I just had a lot of muscle. Like, I'm like, there's no more fat on my body. But I constantly was trying to get smaller. So I really got into that negative going into college. You guys, I went to University of Arkansas. I was a journalism major. I was in a sorority. I have really happy memories there, minus the fact that I was in the absolute worst place mentally with taking Adderall, Vyvanse. That's when I had multiple prescriptions. I, to this day, will never understand why I had the access that I had, but it's addicting. It was like I just had an eating disorder that I was masking with taking stimulants, and I would just drink coffee, and then like I wouldn't eat for like a week, and then I'd go on the weekend and like, drink and eat a pizza. Like, I was just a mess. I was a mess. I had zero balance. Anyways, I'm going somewhere. I know I'm giving you guys a lot of detail, but I want you to know that how long that went on and what state I guess I was in. So college was when I started working at a boutique, and that was the first time I was introduced to fashion influencing and influencers, and I was like, wow. I started off as the steamer at Savoir Faire, shout out, and by the end of it, I was their head of PR and marketing. So I'm like, oh my gosh, there are these beautiful women on Instagram that we are paying money and we're sending them free clothes. Like, that is my dream come true. I always wanted to pursue fashion. I loved fashion. My biggest claim to fame was that I was best dressed in high school. Like, it was all that I cared about, the only accolade that mattered. And I always loved fashion, but Arkansas didn't really have a program. How I ended up at Arkansas, my mom went there. My mom's from Arkansas. My sister was there. I was never really interested in going to college, but I was just like, what the heck. And then I was a journalism major. College was like a really lost time for me. And like I said, I never really felt like I had any religious faith. Like, I knew there was a higher power, but that was pretty much it. Like, I struggled with connecting with anything. And unfortunately, there wasn't like podcasts and TikTok and all of the information like there is now. So I just was kind of like nothing. I was just lost, floating around, eating Adderall and Vyvanse and starving. And I'm laughing. I'm sorry. It's because it's just so absurd now, because I don't even know who that person is anymore. And I actually had someone comment on one of my TikToks, a random troll who I actually don't even know. I have no idea why I'm telling this, but some girl was like, I knew this girl in college and she was so mean. And I'm like, I was so triggered because, y'all, I don't think anyone's ever described me as mean in my whole entire life. Like, that's just one word. I'm like, I feel like I have like golden retriever energy. But I laugh because I'm like, she probably saw me like walking to class one day, just like yeeted on Vyvanse, just like resting bitch face, when like someone interrupts you and you're like, I am on a mission to go to college algebra and like use my protractor. I don't even know if you use protractors in college. You get what I'm saying? You're like so irritable. So I always feel bad for certain people that knew me then. I'm like, they probably thought I was a terror, but that's the only instance I've ever had someone call me mean, and I was so triggered. But it makes you mean. So anyways, like I'm saying, you guys, if you take Adderall or Vyvanse and it works for you, let it ride. But I continued on, decided in 2015 when I was graduating, I was going to start a fashion blog. I'm like, heck yes, sign me up. Free clothes and people will pay me. And I'm like, out of the chute, it's going to be amazing. LOL, creating a blog from scratch. Also, this was like, I had like 200 followers on Instagram. I don't know. Instagram was like it was just coming about. I didn't have like some, crazy platform or anything. I started the blog. It was called Newly AG, play on my name, Newell and Anna Grace, because that was back when everyone had pseudonyms. And so I start blogging, posting about fashion, all of the things. I end up moving back home to Memphis. I worked several different jobs all throughout. I am just literally I'm in the worst kind of grind culture headspace ever. I'm like, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I go work out, and then I go work, and then my dad, bless my sweet father, he has always believed in me. My dad would come meet me downtown and take my photos for my blog on my DSLR, and then I would go to work and then work until 5 o'clock. Then I'd come home and like I would edit and work all night and get things posted. But you know what? I never missed a post. I never missed anything. I was dedicated. And some of those posts are so freaking embarrassing. I die. Like, and people at the time, I would be like, why are people being mean about my blog? Like, why doesn't everyone just love it? Like, I totally get it. People were like, I'm sorry. What are you doing? Are you trying to be a model? Ma'am, what's going on? Because some of it was just like so cringe. But I remember having my feelings hurt because so many people were bullying me when I first started. But now I'm like, and it was foreign territory. I just want you guys to know, if I always knew in my heart, I was like, I'm gonna start a blog because I just loved to share things. I love to review products. I love to rate them. I loved it. And I knew it was the right direction for me. So always trust your gut. If there's something on your heart, follow it. So this brings me up to the major life transition. So this point, I had gone on from working at a law firm, terrible, worst job ever. Then I worked for Free People, Urban Outfitters, styling and doing the social media for, it was like FP Southeast. It was back when Free People had multiple accounts, like for the district of the country. Then I went on to become the fashion editor magazine. I launched my styling career, all the while I am building my platform on Instagram. I'm not really making money at this time. I'm just building, working, taking Adderall and Vyvanse and like not sleeping. I am like grind culture CEO. Ugh, we hate her. We hate her. Grinding is not cool. I mean, yeah, it's necessary at times, but not for years. Okay, so I'm going into the massive transitional time that year from 25 to like 26. I feel like my life changed so dramatically. And the year 25 was when the universe was like, okay, this girl is not paying attention. She's working herself to the bone. We have to do something. We have to intervene. I would also like to say, up until this point, I was a 0. I always say a 0 because I didn't even know the word spiritual. I'm not kidding. I really didn't. I had never heard the term spirituality like used as openly as it is now. Growing up in the Catholic Church, it was very strict. At some point, like I even remember being like, psychics are like people that are just swindling you out of your money, and like I'm like, ma'am, I don't know what psychic hurt me. Like I did not know any psychics, but someone must have told me that, and I just internalized that. Like I thought psychics were the worst, and I did not believe in energy. And I remember one of my sweet friends was like, my grandpa always loved this song, and every time I hear it, I know it's him sending me a sign. I'm like, Like, not only was I just didn't believe in anything. I really didn't. I'm so sad for her. And you know what? If you don't believe in anything, that's okay too, because I totally relate to you. I remember thinking all of this sounded so foreign and insane. Like, just, I could not connect. I couldn't relate. I was just like, not only was I a 0, I was almost like a hater. Like at one point in my life, I almost swung like borderline atheist, just thinking nothing existed. It was a really dark time. I hate even admitting that, but I just always want to be really honest on this podcast because that's how extreme I need you guys to know I swung. I wake up one morning, right? This is the 25-26 transition. I am headed to LA. I'm doing a fashion event. And I was in the crux of my limiting belief that I believed that I would be successful on Instagram if only I was skinnier or prettier, or I was so fixated on the physical and like having the coolest outfit and like just very, very shallow, but like going out to this event in LA. And at this time too, I have like maybe like 10, 15,000 followers. I don't know. I mean, I had a significant amount. Maybe it was more than that, 20,000. I don't know. Whatever. It wasn't huge. It wasn't my full-time income, but like going to these like fashion events in LA was like so everything to me. Of course, I like spent the whole week like starving myself and picking out the perfect outfits and doing all of those things. And the flight I remember was like a 6 a.m. flight. So I'm sitting on the aisle, and I had a friend actually that was traveling with me. She was sitting in like the middle seat, but like across the aisle from me. So it was like aisle seat, aisle, random stranger, my acquaintance that I was traveling with. We had like known each other in college through friends of a friend's, and like she ended up moving to Memphis for a job. So we were acquaintances, but like we didn't know each other super well. So I get on this plane, and the plane takes off. I remember it was a 6 a.m. flight, so I'd been like up all night, packing and being chaotic and crazy. Because remember, guys, I'm working like all these jobs and I'm just absolutely doing the most. So I fell asleep, and I remember the plane hit turbulence. My heart like accelerates every time I tell this story. I'm like sweating. I have to take my shirt off. So I remember the plane hits turbulence, and I was laying down on the tray table in front of me. So the tray table, I sit up and I put the tray table up, and I'm like, all of a sudden from my head to my literal shins. I always tell people, like, when your shins are sweating, you know something's up. Like, I was sweating profusely, and I am starting to feel really scared. I've never felt like this before. I turned to the guy beside me, and I remember this guy looked like a cartoon man, he was like a fisherman or like the conductor of a like train. He had a hat on and denim overalls. He was an older guy with a beard, and I tapped him and I woke him up and I said, "Sir, I need you to call some help. Something is like so wrong. I am really scared right now." And I remembered he called the flight attendant, and the flight attendant comes over, and everyone kind of on the plane is asleep. And my acquaintance on the plane, she was asleep too. So I was just like spiraling by myself, like, oh my gosh. I remember by the time the flight attendant comes, he brings like some juice. And I am like, the only feeling I can ever describe this is that I felt this sense of urgency to like leap out of my body or off the plane. Like you have to, like you're about to projectile vomit. Like, you've got to like run to the bathroom, or like literally like you're about to poop your pants. Like, that feeling when you're like, oh no, something is like bad about to happen and I don't know what to do. What's about to happen? I'm sweating. Like, I just remember thinking like urgent. That's the feeling. Flight attendant comes, hands me this cup of juice, and I remember trying to reach for it. And at this point, my motor skills are like, everything is like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like my peripheral starts going up to black. I can't hold the juice. I spill it on myself. I pass out. So from there, what realistically in the time frame of the flight was probably 10 seconds, not long. It was a blip. But as you guys know, time on our planet is different than time outside of our planet. So this is the first time that keep in mind, I don't believe in anything at this point, you guys, nothing. I felt like I had been vacuum sucked out of my body, like an intense, like pressure. Like, it's almost like what I would imagine the feeling of like giving birth. I've never given birth. I'll report back to you guys. But it's like that, like, and how ironic would that be? Like, the same feeling as giving birth as dying. I don't know, kind of there's something there. But this massive suck out of my body, and I am over my body. And I was not scared. I was like so calm and so peaceful, because I had just went from being terrified to not. I was totally disconnected from my physical body. And I remember seeing these two beings, and they did not have faces. They were very super white, bright, like almost looked like these little like jellyfish, like, or butterfly. Like, there was movement, but not a face. But I knew they were angels. And I do want you guys to know that that is one thing that I've learned. Anyone in this human life that dies, we never ever die alone. There will always be an angel or a loved one that comes and greets you, which I think is like a really beautiful, comforting thing, especially if you've lost a loved one. I wasn't like taken to the gates of heaven. It wasn't like that. It was like I was sucked out of my body, and like the universe was like, hey, you need to get your attention, ma'am. You are killing yourself. You are killing yourself. So I have the main thing was that I felt the most overwhelming, like omnipresent feeling of love, like loving, euphoric, light. Everything felt so light. Like, I'm talking physically light, like obviously bright light, but like physically light. Like I could dart around like I just remember being like, wee, this is fun. I don't want to go back to her. That was my thing. I remember being like, I don't want to go back to her because it's so slow and clunky and just, it's hard being her, like it was almost like I was observing myself prior to this moment. And also too, I was mentally, physically, spiritually in this is the lowest point of my life. I was not a happy person. It was not a good time to be me. So I understand why I didn't want to go back to her, but I never was like, I'm dying, I'm going to hell. It wasn't like that. I was just very like, I was just so calm and felt this feeling of love that I realized was what every religious text has ever been trying to explain. That's all religion is. Everyone was just trying to explain this feeling that I was feeling. And I remembered these angels, like, here's the thing. It's only like I went up there and we had a conversation and I was like, hey, what's going on? It was just like a snap out of my body. I saw these beings and it was like information was just sort of downloaded into my brain. I know that's hard to wrap your head around. This whole story was hard for me to wrap my head around. But it was. And that's why I really believe that angels communicate with us telepathically, always, even when, you're not on the brink of death. So I saw, this is the one most important thing that I saw that I don't think I've shared in any platform or anywhere ever. I've never told, producer Courtney hasn't even heard this, but she's recorded this story with me like 5 times. I saw this grid, and the first thing I learned was that we never ever die alone. There is always an angel that comes and takes you to the other side, and it's like the most beautiful experience ever. And then the second thing was that I saw this grid that went around the whole entire like planet, and I saw how we were so connected to each other. It was the first time that I really I understood all of the Bible texts that were like, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Like, we literally are connected. It's like if we were a tree and like all the leaves on the tree were us. Like, we all come from the same tree. Like, it was this grid. And I understood in that moment how every time you wished ill upon someone else or you did something to harm someone else, you were directly harming yourself. And that to me was like I really understood. And I think that kind of goes into karma a little bit too, but it was like so much bigger than that. Like, I was like, wow, like, y'all, it was some Avatar, that movie is like the most spiritual representation I've ever seen. Like, that is some trippy shit, but that's how it was. Like, we were just connected to this grid, like all of us, every single human. And the only thing I felt was love. And I realized that in that moment, like, the information that I was getting was that we come to Earth to experience contrast, right? So even though I didn't want to go back to this body, this version of myself that I had come there to experience other emotions other than love, because outside of the planet, all we felt was love. Does that make sense? So like, you kind of want to go, it's like we came here to like learn and feel other emotions and experience things. That was what I gathered. So I was given 3 conditions on returning. So right, I'm at this point, I'm like, I don't want to go back. This is cooler, more fun. But obviously my time here was not done. And I never like strayed far from my body or myself. It wasn't like that. I was just kind of hovering and having this like out of body experience. And three, not even, I don't like the word conditions. I guess the 3 reasons that I was to come back. And yes, in case you were wondering, we all really come here with a purpose and a mission. Even if you're like, I have no idea what mine is, I am absolutely positive God's plan, you are here for a purpose. I could not have been more lost at this point in my life. And I, in this moment, could not have been more clear on why I was coming back. So the first one was that I had a specific message that millions of people needed to hear. And I'm actually writing a book. I haven't told anyone that either. I've been writing a book. It's been really in the early phases for the last like 2 years, but it's like actually happening. I think that this book is a big part of this message. I think it's going to come in 3 waves. But it's pretty unique, and it's definitely something I've never heard before. That's for another time, but there was a message that needed to come back along with this story. 2 was that I was going to learn the Akashic Records, how to read them, how to teach them, and how to really connect people with their soul's purpose. And 3, I was going to raise a child that was going to do something really powerful. So that was also very interesting. So I needed to come back. So I did, and I woke up. So that's what happened to me. So I woke up, and it's really ironic too, because up until that point, I was terrified of death. Like, I would literally think about it often. And I think it's because I just couldn't connect to believing in this all-loving God, or I don't know, but death was terrifying. And my parents also had me later in life. Like, my mom was like close to 40 when she had me, and I would like my parents are in great health right now, but I would have these really intrusive thoughts that like, oh no, my parents are going to die because they had me when they were old. Like, I don't know. And I would like cry. And my dad would be like, sweetheart, we are healthy. Like, we're not going to die. But death was really scary for me, which also kind of makes sense because my human design profile is a 1-3. I'm a projector, and it's investigator martyr, which means I have to the martyr piece means I literally have to experience something for myself. For example, going to the other side to really be able to connect with it, understand it, and teach people about it, right? So I think there was a lot of peace and resolution. Like I told Austin, I remember when we first started dating, I was like, because I hadn't told him this whole story. I haven't told anyone this story really, this in depth. And I didn't tell anyone, by the way, after this happened for like a year, because I would have thought I was crazy. Like, and it's also hard to share a story like this that's so intimate and like so profound and then maybe tell someone that doesn't believe you. There's nothing worse. So anyways, if you're listening to this and you've had a crazy experience, I believe you. But I remember I would always tell Austin, like, I'm not scared to die. Like, I'm really not. Like, I'm like, it's really nice and beautiful and really loving. And Austin's like, I hate when you say stuff like that. But I've had a completely, every fiber of my being, every aspect of my life has changed. And if I died tomorrow, I wouldn't be scared. And so I'm not going to die though, because I still have a lot of work to do. I have a whole mission that's got to be carried out. So my biggest regret would not be carrying out the whole reason that I came here to do, also medically, from a medical standpoint. And I get a lot of questions on that. I went to the doctor and the doctor said that it sounded like I had a heart attack. So here I am in my early 20s and I've had a heart attack, which is also fucking crazy. And here's the craziest part. I remember when I went to the doctor, they were like, yeah, but you're probably still okay to take whatever medication if you need it. I'm like, what? I intuitively was like, I will never ever take anything ever again. Here's the thing. I don't recommend anybody going cold turkey on any medication, but for where I was at, I knew that was what needed to happen. And I literally, pretty much from that moment on, it happened slowly, but it was like everything in my life changed. Like things I didn't, it's almost like when you have COVID and you lose your taste and your smell and then it comes back and everything tastes funny. Like that's how I felt, but like my whole life felt like that. Like everything was different. And I do think a lot of people, I often think of the scene from Twilight. I was like such a Twilight book nerd, Harry Potter, all the things. I've read them all when I was growing up. But when Bella gets her vampire, like she turns into a vampire and like everything, all of her senses are heightened. She's like living this different life. That's pretty much what it was like. And I do feel like that's a lot of people experience, just having a spiritual awakening. Like you're just all of a sudden everything changes and you're interested in different people and different things. But nothing was the same. But also I was completely fine. Like health-wise, I stopped taking Adderall. I stopped taking Vyvanse. I did realize I was like basically a baby in an adult's body because I didn't have any eating patterns. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I had no idea about my health. I was a wreck. My adrenals were shot. I was just a mess, but I was completely fine. So that's another thing. For a long time, I didn't ever really know just to call this like an out-of-body experience, a near-death experience. I had a heart attack. All of it felt so dramatic. Like there was so much shame. I didn't want to tell anyone the story because I'm like, they'll never believe you. Like, they'll never believe you. And I would like to give credit. I found this podcast. It's called Let's Talk Near Death. And gave me a lot of comfort that, oh, this has happened to so many people. And every time I share the story, more and more people come forward being like, I had a heart attack. You know, that this happened to me. Even though, you know, I'm completely fine and I'm so grateful and thankful that I can share the story and maybe help someone else. But it still felt really hard and scary and difficult to tell because also like, it was I feel very protective of the situation because I went from being someone who would have laughed in my own face to having this experience, which God really humbles you when you least expect it. But I think at the rate I was going, you know, 10 years, taking stimulants, not eating, not being hydrated, not sleeping, just everything wrong. I mean, no shit, Anna Grace, like, duh. Honestly, my head is like pounding. Telling that story is like so intense. That's okay. You guys needed to hear it. So at this point, you know, I'm living in Nashville. I would say that the time when I was like living alone in my house in Nashville was the most like transformative because that's when I really was able to like learn and tune into everything that's happening. So if you guys are wondering, when I came back, or maybe it was always my truest version of self, I don't know, but I am an intuitive guide. I'm clairvoyant. I'm claircognizant. I I mean, I don't love the word psychic because I know a lot of people have like a kind of a negative connotation, or it's not that I don't love it. Maybe it feels like in the past it's been used as a cheap buzzword, or maybe you know what, it's my own freaking just past where I heard people speak negatively. I don't know, but I am incredibly fucking psychic. I think that when you get taken out of your body, you just stay connected maybe to both realms. I don't know, but I can see, hear, feel, communicate with all energies. The angels that were there that day are always with me to this day. They work with me in the Akashic Records, which is the practice that I'm a part of. But it took me a long time to get from there. So I'm going to try to kind of like, I'm just telling you guys that that's how I came out of this, right? So that's like pretty fucking crazy and overwhelming and like, what? But I didn't know any of this, and keep in mind, I never believed in it. I never been exposed to anyone even like me in my whole life. I didn't know anyone that did this. So I'm thinking I've lost my marbles for like a few months. My friend sends me, because I'm like dreaming things, they happen. I'm like, all of my senses, I'm like, what is going on? Because I think too, that the medication I was taking was like blocking all of my receptor sites. Like maybe I was always this intuitive. Who knows? I do feel like as a child I was very prophetic, but I think I was just blocked, like creatively blocked. My personality, I was blocked because I was just on so much stuff. So I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to get my whole life together. I'm away from my family. They have really no idea because they wouldn't have really been super into this either. Now they're very supportive, but like at the time it was just all scary. So I go to this guy named Frank, and he is like a celebrity psychic. I was wardrobe styling in Nashville on set with a really, really famous artist. She's a powerhouse and someone I really look up to and respect. And she always would consult Frank. And I'm like, who's Frank? What's he do? I need to know. If you're doing Frank, I'm doing Frank. What's he doing? So I go see him, which by the way, at this point, it takes like 6 months to get in to see him. Now his waitlist is like 16 months. It's bananas, but he's truly, I mean, he's a wizard. He's one of the most amazing people I've ever known. He literally predicted that I would meet Austin. Y'all, I'm not kidding, like 5 years ago. Like, it was crazy. So I go to Frank, and Frank pretty much tells me I sort of become obsessed with psychics because they're like so intriguing. I'm so drawn to them and I don't know why. And he tells me, he's like, well, it's because you're supposed to be doing what I'm doing. And I'm like, what? Like at this point, I'm like, I'm not gonna do readings for people. Are you crazy? Like, no. Then I go see like 3 more psychics because I need someone else to tell me something different. All of a sudden I think that I'm like smarter and I'm going to like do this science experiment and like compare and contrast and see if they all say the same thing. You know, I don't know what I was doing, whatever. So I find my friend Kim, I'll tag her and Frank and everyone in the show notes. But Kim, I start working with her, and she's just the most loving. She's been a friend and a mentor to me and really guiding me through this, because she was the first person that was totally like, hey, I believe you. This is okay. Like, you're safe. Everything's fine. We're going to work on this together. And I really spent like all of quarantine, like those 2 years, doing energetic practices and protection and really trying to like, because it was a little overwhelming. Like, right, I would dream things. There were spirits coming to visit me in the night. Like, it was just crazy things were happening. And I was like, am I going crazy? Is this normal? And everyone was like, that I was seeing was like, oh, it's normal. You just gotta, learn how to, harness your powers for good. I'm like, okay, great. So Kim at this point is someone I love and adore. And she tells me, you need to go get your Akashic Records read by my friend Yvonne. Also, before I go get my Akashic Records read, I went through like those 2-3 years reading every self-help book, every spiritual text. Gabby Bernstein for president, I love her. Like, I learned everything there was like to learn. But honestly, I did a lot of this in private. I had no interest in telling anyone. Like I said, that's the same old shame story. I was afraid to tell people. I was afraid they were gonna think I was crazy. And but my friends were really becoming aware. I was like highly sensitive, highly in tune, very spiritual. So there was a lot of this story is years long. I'm sure I'm forgetting some details, but there was a lot of work on my end that went into it and getting myself right, my body right, my business right. At this point too, I was a full-time content creator on Instagram, and I'm like, how the hell am I ever going to tell these people? I'm like a fashion girly pop on Instagram. How am I going to tell people that I'm also like a full-blown clairvoyant medium reading the Akashic Records, communicating. You know, it's like, it's just a hard thing to pivot, because when I started out, I wasn't that, and now I am, and here we are. So I don't know. when do I just drop that bomb one day on everyone? So I go see Yvonne, who is still a Reiki practitioner at Nashville Center of Alternative Therapy. She's an amazing Reiki specialist as well. And I believe she does some Akashic Records still, but she did an Akashic Records reading for me, and we connected, and I was so like captivated by the whole experience. I was like, do you think I could learn to do this? And she was like, oh, absolutely. Like, yes, this is 100%. So I get a book. I read a book. I open the Akashic Records, and I am like, I'm not kidding. I immediately started doing readings immediately. Like, it was like I had done it in every single lifetime that I've ever existed. I had done it my whole life. I don't know how to explain it to people. I really don't. I just knew. I knew everything. I did a reading for one. I think my first reading I ever did was my dear friend Helen Hall, who's the CEO and founder of Blender Bombs. And she was blown away. She cried. I cried. I was shocked. No one's more shocked than me, you guys. I mean, I knew I had these gifts, but I did not know how to harness them or channel them or whatever. And then I was hooked, because I was like, wow, that was like, I really specialize in reconnecting people with their highest version of self, their soul's purpose, and giving them action steps and takeaways to realign them with the highest version of themselves, right? So that's like your quote unquote God's plan. Like, everything really does have a plan. You have a purpose, and I'm just here to maybe connect a few dots where maybe you can't see them. I am all about giving very, very high vibrational readings, and that's what the Akashic Records is. Sorry, I know on the scale of spirituality, Akashic Records is pretty deep down the old rabbit hole, because it's not a super common term, but it's actually dated back in every ancient text ever. Like, it's on the freaking pyramids and the hieroglyphics. It's in the Bible. It's known as the Akasha, or the Book of Life in the Bible. And you guys, there's prophets in the Bible, there are angels in the Bible. Like, I work with angels. It is an angel reading. And growing up Catholic, this felt very safe to me, because we always prayed to, like, the patron saint, or we had angels or Archangel Michael. Like, that's exactly pretty much what I'm working on. So I started doing readings. I didn't even really tell, like, my friends or family. Like, there's like the people who it was like, if you knew, you knew. If you did a reading with me, it spread through word of mouth. And it really got me through quarantine, though, because it gave me this newfound sense of purpose that, like, wow, I could really help someone with their business, and someone who really needs some guidance. I felt so fulfilled, and also I loved it, and it was fascinating, and I got to talk to angels. Like, how cool. So I immediately started doing readings privately. No one was more shocked than me. It spread like wildfire. I all of a sudden had like at least like 40 or 50 people who were just all like influencers. Really, I had been doing celebrity styling and influencer work, and I switched to literally doing celebrity readings. I know on Shannon's podcast, she said celebrity medium. I am a medium too. I can connect to those who have passed. I don't seek that work out. I prefer to do Akashic Records, which is the angel readings, which is soul's purpose. So just so you guys kind of know, there is a difference there. So I know this is wild, and maybe a completely new story you've ever heard. I don't know. I have no idea where you're at on the spectrum of spirituality or things that you're aware of, but I can tell you that I know 100% I am in my soul's purpose. And if this story, maybe it's not for everyone, and that's okay. But I have been doing this in private for almost 3 years. I have over 500 people on my wait list to do a reading with me. Like, it has grown massively, exponentially. But here's the thing, I'm stepping more into this role so that we can open up more time, space, and energy for me to see people, for me to read with people. I am doing courses teaching all of these beautiful messages that I have channeled and learned from the Akashic Records. And also, obviously, this podcast is going to be, I just get so much information every single day. I want people to know about it. I want it to be bigger, because I just find it so helpful. And I want to help you guys connect with the highest version of yourself and your intuition, any of your energetic gifts. Like, I want to create all of the just verbiage for you so that you can use it in your everyday. Because honestly, the more aware you are of your energy and how to maintain it, how to protect it, the more successful you're going to be. It's that simple. And I'm like, I need everyone to know this. I tell Austin all the time. He's totally like, what are you talking about? But also, okay, I'm going to try. So I'm now in a place, just literally in the last few months, where I'm comfortable talking about it. I just went on a family vacation with my family, and we kind of talked about the Akashic Records some, and it's definitely a little bit difficult for them to, conceptualize, because I'm also a completely different person. But like I said, I came from a background. My dad was an environmental scientist. He worked on Native American, like healing grounds. And so I'm familiar with like grounding and certain practices. So I've taken practices from lots of different places, just like my whole life. So my family is, they're open. But this is how we got here. I'm an intuitive guide, clairvoyant. I'm still working on the title. I don't know. Austin's always like, the word psychic medium makes me think of like a 1-800 number. And I'm like, okay, I don't like that. But, I believe in God. I pray in Jesus' name because that's where I came from. That's my root. But the reason I'm saying all of this is that I just want this to be a space where we talk about energy and love, right? Whatever that looks like to you, whatever that feels like to you, whether it's God, universe, source, whatever, Gaia, whatever verbiage, I believe in it all. It's all welcome. I am always rooted in love with these messages. My intention for this whole podcast is love. So I don't ever want to turn anyone off by, saying specific words or terms, but I just kind of wanted to basically you guys to know, well, 1, how I got here, 2, what AG University is. This is not like an influencer 101 podcast, even though we can talk about that stuff, but this is really just a place that I want to help you become more in touch with yourself, because I'm telling you, your intuition, whatever you have on your heart, maybe it's becoming an influencer, I don't know, but whatever is on your heart, it's like this internal GPS that was like put inside of you, and you come into this planet and your body is like, your soul is like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to do this. And then a lot of us spend time being like, no, I'm too scared to try that, or too scared to do the thing. I'm going to make you do the thing. Okay. If you listen to this podcast, you're going to do the thing. I'm going to make you do the thing. You don't have a choice. I'm sorry. You're here. That's it. Everyone buckle up. So whatever is on your heart, it's there for a reason. And I'm going to give you the tools to tune into your highest self. So that is the foundation for this class of 2023. Everybody, I'm happy you're here. It's a free education. We love that. So this is all about energy and in love and in lightness. And I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to share this story. And honestly, I'm excited to share this side of myself, because I do feel like I've been living like a freaking Hannah Montana double life, pretending, that I'm just a fashion person when I have like so much more to me and to offer. I think a big part of that too was coming into a relationship that, I believe Austin is my person. And even though this stuff is so foreign to him, he supports me and he knows. And I think that was something there was a lot of resistance for me. I was always afraid to like date someone and then find out all this about me and be like, whoa, that's really crazy. Or just, I think everything in my life has fallen into a place where all of my friends could not be more supportive. They're like, I've done readings for all of my friends. I've done reading for producer Courtney, Shannon, everyone in my life. And they really, really understand me now and understand that this is like such a gift, and that they know I'm here to help people. And so it's just been really cool doing this like massive coming out party, and everyone just being so kind, so loving. And everyone that sent me a DM from Shannon's podcast, like, thank you so much. Everyone was so, I have not gotten a single negative word. Everyone was just so loving and supportive and kind. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. So you guys, this was the foundation for our coursework. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. So everyone's got to come to class. I'm not sure what the exact date is going to be around like release. I'm just getting information out, but I am committed to getting this out every single week and bringing on the best experts. I have so many people lined up already that are so pumped to come on, celebrities and influencers that I've read for that are going to come on and talk about their reading. Like, how freaking cool. I'm so stoked. It's going to be things that you guys are going to be pretty shocked about, and especially people that you are not going to see this coming from. So, yes, we're going to be learning. I love you. I love you. I love you. Subscribe, tag me in your stories. I'll repost it or I'll message you. I'm still figuring out the podcast thing, but that's it, you guys. You're dismissed. Class is over. I love you so much. Mwah.